The ICJ in 2004, specifically it's 9 July, that is 2004, on a pertinent question about Israel and Palestine. Make this on a pertinent, this is a decision of that court. And this is a finding they make. I want just to read one sentence for you. The court concluded that the construction of the wall, along with measures taken previously, severely impeded the exercise by the Palestinian people of its right to self-determination and was thus a breach of Israel's obligation to respect that right. This conclusion had followed a finding that the creation of this wall was tantamount to a de facto annexation. That is 2004. Now, come 2019, you write an article. Your article which says creating a different future for Israel and Palestinians. Are you aware of that? You remember that article?
Yes, I do, thank you.
I want us to talk briefly on that. And correct me if I'm wrong. The impression I get from the article is two. First, you criticize the comparison of the actions by the Israel government with those.
Sorry, Commissioner Nojesi, I assume that that's an article that's in the bundle.
Yes.
Okay.
That's an article. Yes. That's
Okay.
an article. In fact,
Chief Justice, I'm not sure that's in the bundle, but I just want to put on record that we did give Professor Bilchik's notice that questions will be asked about his article.
Okay, no, that's all right then. Thank you.
now, in the article, in parts, this is what you say. You say, this is what, this is an observation. You criticize the comparison of the actions by the Israel government with those of apartheid South Africa. You describe the comparison as nonsense if one considers the different origins of the conflict. Were you aware of this decision of the ICJ of 2004? Because in the judgment, you simply make not even a single reference to it.
Commissioner, I'm very willing to answer questions about issues and my prior writings relating to Israel-Palestine. I would, though, like a direction from the Chief Justice if this is appropriate for me to do so. I am aware that the former Chief Justice was disciplined by the Judicial Conduct Committee for expressing views relating to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I am currently a sitting judge of the Constitutional Court, and I've taken the view, ever since I knew I was an acting judge, I have expressed no view on any conflict that involves foreign policy, that involves the domain of the executive, and I've tried to conduct myself in that way. I am very happy to defend what I said and what my views are, but I'm also not sure that I'm entitled to do so. So I will ask for direction from the Chief Justice in that regard, and if I'm permitted to answer your question, I will do so.
Yeah. No, just before the Chief Justice answers, I'm asking this question based on your article in 2019 in view of the judgment of the ICJ, of which the starting point was to establish if you were aware of that judgment of the ICJ when you were writing this article.
Absolutely.
If we can agree on that.
And I would suggest to you, just in very broad terms, that my general record in regard to writings on Israel-Palestine, and I don't think that is at all different from that article, is that I accept international law and I seek to give effect to international law in everything I've written in relation to Israel-Palestine, to defend the rights.
Professor Bilchik, you wanted me to give guidance. You have started giving an answer before I could say anything. Well, one, I thought that at least the question that had been asked to you was simply limited to whether at the time of writing the article you were aware of the judgment, which didn't seem to me should create any problem. But to the extent that there might be another question that you might be uncomfortable responding to without guidance, then one could take it from there. But the one about whether you were aware or not didn't seem me to be problematic.
Absolutely. As someone writing in the area, Chief Justice, I'm very aware of that judgment, and I would suggest to you that the article is in fact completely in accordance with that judgment by highlighting the various injustices in relation to the military occupation of occupied Palestinian territory in that article that I seek to draw attention to.
Yeah. Lastly on this, but if you don't want to, if you are not comfortable to answer, you can say so. The immediate impression in the article you wrote in 2019 is that, in your view, Israel is not a colonial settler. That is the view that I make. Is that fair?
To answer your question would be to wade into a highly contested engagement with issues of history and politics, which I think would be inappropriate for me as a sitting constitutional court judge to answer. I would just make the point that my record in this regard is to, one, defend the role of international law and try and ensure that it is given effect to. Two, to defend the rights of human rights of Israelis and Palestinians, and to try and utilize the South African experience to try and understand how one brings people together from very, very, very different histories and narratives to find some kind of resolution and negotiated settlement. That has been the impetus of my work in that area, and I would suggest to you my work has tried to give effect to the values of our Constitution and broaden that in international.
Don't go too far, Professor Lucius, if you say you are uncomfortable. If you go too far, you may be opening yourself up for further questions.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Yeah, this is the last third question. These two is that were taking long. This is a third
I want
question.
to make a
Short.
follow-up. I want to make a follow-up on the question before you go to the third one.
The one that is uncomfortable to answer?
Yeah.
And then he will say if he's uncomfortable with your one too.
No, I'm just saying the question is based on the article he wrote.
Yeah.
And we're saying to him, we're putting it to him, that it will be our interpretation that you are saying Israel is not a colonial occupier. And if he says, I'm not going to comment on that, that remains our opinion and it will be raised in deliberations.
Well, maybe what we should do is excuse the candidate briefly and let's talk among ourselves. Is it fine? Let's just do that before we proceed. You'll be called back, Professor Pilchitz, and will the media also please excuse themselves and other people. Welcome back, Prof.
Thank you, Chief Justice.
Thank you. We have had a discussion, and the position is that you are being asked questions about a view you expressed some time back, and not as a judge. And clarification is being sought so that it can be determined how, what weight should be attached to that view for if any, for purposes of deliberations. And it's fair that you be given an opportunity to clarify. So, but if you are not comfortable to answer, you won't be forced to answer. But the commissioners who may have sought clarification would then deal with the matter without the benefit of your clarification. Okay, all right, thank you. Now, Commissioner Malema, you wanted to follow up, or you wanted that question. That's when we excuse the candidate. I think I must give you a chance to ask your question.
No, Chief Justice, I was not asking a question. I was just repeating what Commissioner Nonchesi said, and he
okay.
said
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable responding to that. So I was saying to him,
Yes.
if that is the stance, it means in the deliberations,
Yeah.
I will be allowed to express that view as a correct view because you didn't put a counter argument or seek to clarify it.
Yes.
Thanks.
No, thank you, Commissioner Malema. Just to make sure that we are on the same page, Commissioner Nojesi, do you want to put that question again to the candidate so that he can then now answer if he is comfortable or to answer, but also knowing what the consequences will be if he doesn't answer, namely that commissioners would look at the matter, consider the matter without the benefit of his clarification.
Thank you, CJ. What I was saying to you, Prof, is this. The total impression of that article is that you suggest that Israel is not a colonial settler in Palestine. I mean, it's not an occupying state. That is the total sum of what one gets.
As I've mentioned, I do not want to wade into a matter that is of deep controversy at the moment in the South African community. I would hope people who are Zionist or anti-Zionist or post-Zionist would have faith in me to address issues if they ever come before the Constitutional Court in an impartial manner. I would suggest to you the only point I'd like to make in relation to the article is that when I brought a delegation from Myanmar, I engaged with some of the senior members of the ANC who negotiated South Africa's settlement. And they said to me, despite not seeing any justice in what the Nationalist Party had to say, they tried to think themselves into the perspective of those who they had to negotiate with and tried to understand what is the deepest fears they have and how can we find a way through that. And I would suggest to you that my work and that article in particular is an attempt to say where there are deep divisions, contesting narratives, which are really landing up in an absolutely horrific situation we all watch at the moment, an Armageddon. How can we find a way through? How can we listen to each other and our different stories that we have around Israel and Palestine to find a way that the people of that area can share the land and share a future together? That's what I've sought to do. I've tried to be a peace builder in my work. I've tried to engage with peace in Colombia, which is a place which...
Sorry, Prof, you have answered my question.
Thank you.
CJ, I think I should end here.
Sorry, Commissioner Nojesi.
I think in view of time, I must stop here. Other commissioner will follow. Thank you.
Just a follow-up, CJ.
Okay, thank you.
CJ, follow-up.
Oh, Commissioner Malema?
Yeah, mine is very simple, Prof. Do you still stand by that article?
Mr. Malema, I'm not sure I would write every single phrase in the way I did. I shift my own views as well. But in large part, the necessity to find a way through, to understand the two very divergent and competing narratives, and to find a way for the two peoples to listen to each other and to live together in peace and dignity with respect for self-determination and international law, those are all things I would still stand by.
Prof, do you still stand by that article? Because it can't be, you can't have it both. It's either you say there are parts of the article that, given the new information exposed to me, I will rather not keep in that article. So if you stand by it, just say so. So when I leave here, I know Prof still stands by that, or there are these other parts which, with more information and hindsight, is no longer standing with those.
Commissioner, I stand by the thrust of the article, as I've said to you. I think there are changed. We have seen differences over the last 5 years We have also seen there are currently, and it's not right for me to express an opinion about proceedings before the International Court of Justice at the moment on a number of questions. And as I said, as someone deeply committed to international law, I would also see myself as bound to shift my views if the International Court of Justice finds in certain ways that require me to shift my view. But as I say, I'm not able to express my view on those things. That's inappropriate for a judge sitting in the Constitutional Court at the moment to express views on proceedings currently in an international court, and those may have caused some change to some elements of the article. But the thrust for need for finding a way through to peace, I stand by.
Sorry, Chief Justice. Sorry to interrupt, but Professor Julius, when I first raised my hand 3 hands ago, I wanted to ask you a question about contract, but I'm now going to ask you a question about this thing that's being debated. The reason is because, I always watch candidates here before the JSC. They are asked a relatively inane, mundane question. They complicate their lives, by appearing to be defensive or evasive, etc. Now, I'm afraid that is the impression I'm getting around this issue. And, and it's not a complicated question. You wrote an article and you said you don't buy the story of apartheid, you don't buy the story of colonialism, right? That's fine. We can have debates about that, and apartheid is an international legal issue. And occupation is also an international legal issue. We do need the views of our top judges in the Constitutional Court on these questions, because South Africa is engaged in the international space, and it has been engaged since 1994. It can't avoid it. So this idea that you say, well, there are certain things have moved along, it gives the impression that you are evading the issue.
Commissioner, I think that's really unfair. There is currently, as you know and you have argued, there's a case currently before the international.
Hang on, Prof. Hang on. When Commissioner Ngubatobi says this to you, to say what you are, the way you are responding gives the impression that you are avoiding. It's to your benefit, because he wants to give you a chance to say to him, no, I'm not avoiding, and here is why you shouldn't think I'm avoiding. You persuade him. So he's giving you that benefit. If you don't explain that, he's going to go into deliberations with the picture that you are avoiding. So he's trying to make sure that he's fair to you.
Thank you, Chief Justice, and I apologize if I appear evasive. I do not want to be evasive in any way. I do not see it, and I take that view as appropriate for me to express a view on proceedings. There's currently proceedings which South Africa has brought relating to genocide before the International Commission of Justice, and there's also an advisory opinion that has been requested on questions around occupation and apartheid. I see it as inappropriate for me to answer questions about whether or not this is correct when South Africa has a live case and live interest in that, and the principles are being discussed at that level. As an academic, I would love to do that. I'm not currently just before you as an academic. I'm before you as a candidate for the Constitutional Court and acting as well on the Constitutional Court. And so...
No, Professor Julius, I'm sorry. I think that the problem that I'm grappling with, you were not here when we had a break, but Commissioner Malema made an example and said, if you just asked JP Mlambo, what do you think about Israel versus Palestine? Without anything, he would be entitled to say, I've not actually formulated views. In fact, I'm very surprised that you're asking me that question. Can I please get a pass? But he was saying, what is different with you is that you have, in fact, written an article, right? And you have expressed these views. And so many things have happened. And we just want to get a sense that, all right, this is the view you expressed, this is the view that you take. And that's the only context in which I said, should I not be worried that you are evasive? Because this is not something that you are being asked for the first time. You have written about it. So is this the view now that you carry with you in the Constitutional Court as a future judge? And these things are actually very simple. No one is trying to catch you. In fact, personally, I'm actually I was looking forward to this interview. And I thought this question could be dealt with within a minute.
Well, I'm not sure how I can deal with the question in a minute, but Commissioner, as I've said, I'm not trying to be evasive. I've made perspectives in the past. I have expressed where I stand in the past on these things. At the moment, since I was appointed as an acting judge, I have not commented on the last 6 months of horrific events that have taken place in the Middle East, and I've said nothing. For exactly the reason that I believe it would be inappropriate for me to wade into that territory, and that people in South Africa with vastly different points of view should be able to have confidence in me, and that I will fairly, and I think the key thing that needs to be understood is my commitment to fundamental rights. I've defended that in everything I've done, a commitment to international law, which I've defended in everything I've done, and a commitment also to finding ways through to peaceful resolutions of intractable conflicts.
Thank you very much. I think we move on. I've got 2, 4, 5. That is Commissioner Xaba. I don't know whether Commissioner Malema is still going to want. Then Commissioner Dodovu, Commissioner Breitenbach, then Commissioner Mangena. I propose that I should not take any further hands. I should just exhaust those. Commissioner Xaba.
Thank you very much, CJ. My questions have been exhausted. I only have one question.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
just for yes or no answer. Prof, do you hold a dual citizenship?
I am only a South African.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Malema.
Thank you, CJ. Just a quick one, Prof. So I think we are in agreement that you don't have experience as a judge. For the record, Prof.
That's correct. I have only been acting as a judge for the last 2 months.
So now,
Yes.
if I'm presented with a Black African male who comes with a huge experience of a judge, including good judgment writing, and Shem is at your level, it's you, except that you don't have experience, but also this judge, because I don't buy this thing that only academics can write very well. So for you to be a good writer of judgment, you must be an academic. We've been having very good judges writing very good judgments, and they are not academics. So then through the judgments of this judge, you can see that it's very good. So when you are confronted with that kind of a situation, what do you do?
Thank you, Commissioner Malema. The key
In line with transformation, yes.
Yes, absolutely. The key provision is Section 1742 of the Constitution, as I'm sure you're aware, which says the need for the judiciary to reflect broadly the racial and gender composition of South Africa must be considered. In light of our history in South Africa, it is an imperative to have racial and gender transformation. And so I would think there would be a degree of preference towards the black male candidate, or black female candidate even higher in many ways. What I can offer is, as I've mentioned, a diversity of perspectives, and also perhaps one element of diversity that hasn't really been canvassed thus far. And that is that when I was growing up, people with my sexual orientation were criminalized for having same-sex relationships. And during my lifetime, the Constitution has fundamentally changed my life and that of others in the LGBTQ community, first by decriminalizing our sexuality, and then recognizing our rights to stand shoulder to shoulder with other South Africans in dignity. There are still very few openly LGBTQ judges in South Africa, and in fact around the world. And I remember how deeply moving for me it was to see the first Constitutional Court judge, Justice Cameron, appointed to the court. Why is it so important? Because I think when we look at Section 1742, we want South Africans to see themselves in the court. And so I would hope that my appointment would in some sense advance LGBTQ representation. and also perhaps serve as an indicator to the young lesbian woman I met last year from Katlehong, and the transgender activist who I met who was rejected by their religious community, whose families have refused to accept them and for whom they've been rejected, and who opened up to me about their own pain, that the South African legal and political community seeks to embrace people with diverse sexual orientations, and that she and they and others like them, whoever they are and wish to be, can be authentic in their own identities. And so I would suggest to you that there may be other elements of identity, such as sexual orientation, such as disability, which may play a role in the deliberations of this commission.
Last one, CJ. I'm a very, supporter of LGBTQ community. I'm the only president of a political party who marched to Uganda wearing a rainbow flag, because that is a community that I feel very strong. It needs to be supported. You have all what it takes, Prof, except this fundamental issue of experience. And you just joined a church. And then after joining the church, the next thing you're asking is, where are the pastors sitting? Just on arrival. Don't you think that is unheard of?
Commissioner Malema, you point out, of course, my lack of judicial experience, but I am an experienced professor. I am still young, like yourself as a political leader, and I think we're a young country in many ways. We also have a young Minister of Justice and many young people who committed to advancing this country in the different ways that we have to do that. I agree with you. I lack that experience, but I have a different experience, as I've suggested, which is what I need to be considered on the basis of. So it's not something that I can say to you. I can manufacture judicial experience that I don't have. That's something I don't have, but I do have all these other things. And if you think the things that I have can enhance the Constitutional Court, then that's the way in which I put myself forward for the court on the basis of what I do have. Thank you.
I'm very sorry to do this, CJ, too, but why can't you? Because
maybe Commissioner Malema, because I wanted to say something about the question you put to him. If I can just say something before you continue.
But maybe before you say that, so that you can enrich what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Why can't you just say, okay, this is my weakness. Let me go and work on it. And we ask Chief Justice, I don't know who else, the powers that be, to give you more acting stints. And you just said you are young. There are people who self-disrupt. Don't self-disrupt. You are young. There's nothing against you except this element which is workable. You go and work on it, and then you perfect it, and then come back here. And your interview is going to last for less than 30 minutes when you come back, because we've asked you everything. But you say, if this is a fair criticism, I accept. Let me go and accumulate more judicial experience. Thanks.
Commissioner Malema, that is one possible route, and of course, that is one possible way that my career could unfold. My caution about that route is what it does is it requires, in a way, it says to academics, your only route to the judiciary is in a way by shifting your career from academia into the judiciary. And in a way, already my university is required to find replacements for me and has been very, very kind, the University of Johannesburg, and always very supportive. But what it does mean is that the academic loses the academic dimension and becomes more of a judicial figure, and then only can get appointed. And I think part of what I've suggested is that if you want that fresh academic perspective, in a sense, partly outside the judiciary, then it's possible that it's not a weakness that one doesn't have judicial experience. One just brings something different to the experience of being a judge. Thank you.
Well, I wanted to say, Commissioner Malema and Professor Vilches, that Professor Vilches chose and not to say to Commissioner Malema, you see, Commissioner Malema, I was at the university going on with my business, never thinking about acting in the Constitutional Court until the Chief Justice phoned me. and when he phoned me, he said the only people he would give an acting appointment if they were academics and senior practitioners would be people who would commit themselves to making themselves available. That's why I'm here, you know. So I just want to say, in part, it's the Chief Justice who has encouraged them to make themselves come forward, make themselves available. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that they, if necessary, further acting stints can't be given. But I'm just saying the context is that they were minding their own business until the Chief Justice phoned them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Justice, for sharing.
Thank you.
Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: African politics, economy, and increasing power. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.
Tell us what you think in the comment section. Like and share the video, and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our African videos. It's the best way to support us.